We are officially live. I'm currently building a whole setup. I want to have like a background, like an actual camera, not just my phone, lights, all that stuff. So I'm currently building that now. But yeah, we got to upgrade. We got to upgrade. And there, one, and there, whoa, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you don't know, my name is Derek Ofaderumwa. This is the Medicine Shell, and I talk about Igbo. I teach about Igbo spirituality and cosmology, known as Odinala. Odinala. Some people call it Odinani. It differs by dialect. But we're going to say Odinala because I've gotten better at pronouncing the two A's. That being said, welcome. This is an Ask Me Anything. I'm going to go ahead and start once we get 10 people in here. Let's see how fast we can do that. I feel like it'll be quick too. Once we get 10 people in here, I'm going to go ahead and begin. For those of you who are new, the absolute best way to support the movement is by joining the Patreon. Patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. My patrons have full access to my research library. So all of the documents and books that I read, things that people send me, things that I find and I haven't gotten to, I have a whole collection of it. So it's this giant online library about, let me just say, in ancestral spirituality. It's got hundreds of books, articles, I think somewhere in the 300s or so, books, articles, documents, first-hand records, stuff like that. The other day I was reading about this European that during the colonial era or pre-colonial era, like before colonialism started, he went to Igbo land. I think he stopped in Onitsha, and he doesn't say it in his writing, but he ends up like had falling, like getting a crush on this like girl, or like this girl who was like the daughter of a very rich man. But before we got to that part of the story, he kept talking about this really annoying guy who he called King Boy, King Boy, um, which in Igbo is Ezeokoro, which makes more sense than King Boy, but whatever, doesn't translate the best. And so this guy named King Boy used to annoy him. He said that what King Boy used to do was anytime he'd see a white guy, he'd open this book and the white person would have to sign it. And he said that on the book, he saw very like a lot of expletives and things like that sailors had left and stuff like that. And King Boy, he can't read what they're writing. He just does it, right? So he thinks he's being smart, right? Like, okay, fine, I'll sign your little book, King Boy. But he didn't realize what King Boy was doing was he would use this book to show everybody all the signatures of all these foreigners he had. So they would now think, oh, you have access to foreigners. Okay. And then it opens up trade deals for him and the people in the inland, the other Igbo people. So King Boy, he's making fun of this King Boy guy. He's like, he keeps like pointing out King Boy being annoying. And then he starts talking about this particular girl who's really beautiful, yada, yada, yada. And then he sees that it's actually King Boy's either fiance or wife, but they're together. I'm like, oh, this guy was hating. So that's one of the first-hand documents we have in the library. Anybody who's interested, if you're on Patreon, message me. I'll send you a link to it. But I was just reading it, and that one's hilarious. I'm gonna find an excuse to tell the story in one of the videos. But yeah, once we get to 10 people, I'm gonna go ahead and start. But I'm just talking right now. But like I said, all of that is on patreon.com/themedicineShell. We're opening a traditional medicine class. And so a lot of people have asked me about a payment plan, like being able to pay using a payment plan. The platform I'm using, to my knowledge, and I've tried everything, only lets me have a payment plan for one thing. And I have a payment plan for the Igbo language classes. So what I'm actually going to do is open a tier on Patreon. It's going to be called the Ezumezu tier. Ezumezu means total and complete, where if you're at that tier, anything Kedu is offering, you get for free, right? So you join a certain tier on Patreon, you can take the Igbo language class, you can take the traditional medicine class. Well, not for free, but like it's all included. That's your benefits. You get all that. So, Ndewo, Scotty, Ndewo, nice seeing you. Nourished by Nature or Netter. The name is new, so hello, Ndewo. All right, so I saw I hit 12 people, so you say we've finally done it. Now let me break cola and we'll go ahead and begin our meeting. What I have here is Audrey, right? Audrey. These are representative of the human heart, the ubi. They are also representative of the 4 market days, Eke, Urie, Afo, Nkwo. These are the 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 parcels of an essence that make a human being, right? Or that make all things. Eke, Ori, Afo, Nkwo. In my next video, I'm going to be releasing a video tomorrow, which means I'm staying up all night because there's this last part I got to fix and it's going to take a long time. But I'm doing a video tomorrow on ancestral psychiatry. Ara. So psychiatry, mental illness, and things like that. Like, what did our ancestors and their cosmology say about mental illness and healing and that kind of thing? And so in the video, I end up telling, well, I don't tell the story, actually, my son tells the story, tells the story of why the 4 market days are so important. And it's actually key to curing Ara in the ancestral worldview. So that being said, this represents the heart. This also represents the connection between us and our ancestors and us and our progeny, those who will come after us and so forth. So this is the representation of the eternal being and being itself. Okay, so that's why we use it. That's why, yes, those are cola nuts, Rosie Rose, absolutely. How old are you? You can't ask questions until I break the cola. So ask me once I've broken the cola. Okike keruwa Mapangolo bi n'eluigwe, alawala, ala nne mmadụ na nne mmụọ, nne na-enye ndụ, mụrụ anyị niile bụ nne mmadụ na mmụọ. Ọjị abịala, iji m ọjị n'aka na-ekele ndị eke, ndị orie, ndị afọ na ndị nkwọ, ndị mbụ na ndị egede, ndị mmadụ na ndị mmụọ, ụmụ ajana na ụmụ kpakpando eluigwe. Ọ nke ka m ji na-ekele unu. Nwaanyị abịala, otu unu fụrụ m bụ otu m dị. Aka m dị ọcha, ụkwụ m dị ọcha, obi m dị ọcha, uche m dị ọcha, mana anyị na-aga, anyị na-eme, anyị bụ nke okike kere ka anyị bụ, ka anyị mee, ka anyị gaa. Ọwa obi ndị ọkpụ na ndị iche ka anyị ji aga, mana anyị bụ otu. Ọ bụ obi mmụọ ka anyị ji na-aga, mana anyị bụ otu. Ọwa obi ndị ụwa niile nwee ọma n'obi ha, na-eme nke ọma, na-eshi ike n'ụwa ka anyị ji aga, mana anyị bụ ụmụ ndị mbụ na ndị egede. Otu a ka ọ ga-adị n'eke, n'orie, na afọ, na nkwọ. Ise. Udo. All right, y'all. Yo, I'm seeing a lot of new names. Greetings. Ndewo. Good morning, sir. I have a question to ask. All right, let's ask away. We have hit 10 people. You can ask a question. I'm going to close the door. For some reason, I have a door here. If it's open, it takes me out of the space. So I'm coming. Hold on. All right. Anybody that has questions, go ahead and ask. Somebody asked how old I was. I was advised by a very wise 27-year-old woman never to give my age out. But she gave her age out anyway. But it was some of the best advice I got in the corporate world when I was working for them people. Good morning. I have a question for you. Okay. How old are you? How old am I? I'm either 35 or 36, but thank you for asking. And there will. So much depth in all your content. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. And there's even more. One of the things I have to stop myself from doing in the videos is saying too much or going too far in. And sometimes I feel like, oh, but I didn't include this thing and I want to include that and I want to include this and that kind of thing. That's why it's important, when I say, hey, if you guys want to see a video on this, go ahead and comment below, because odds are I did a whole talk on it. And I was like, okay, this video is too long. I had to cut it out. So I go, okay, if you guys want to hear about this, comment below and that kind of thing. So let me know what you guys want to hear. It is an infinite pool of wisdom and an infinite pool of being. And I'm grateful that my calling is to share it with people, because it's fun to share and it's easy to share. There's so much to share. What book are you currently reading? Oh, wow. Good question. I'm to my knowledge, I don't think I'm reading any book, but I could be wrong. Let me check. I have to remember. If I'm reading something, I haven't read it in like a week because I'm working on this video. But the book I'm currently reading, I'm not really reading any books right now. There's no books that I'm reading at the moment. I'm browsing a lot of documents as I need them, but I'm not reading any particular book to my knowledge. To my knowledge. I'm writing a book though. I'm writing a book. So that's actually where my literary literary eye is going. I'm writing a book, nonfiction. I think nonfiction's when you're making shit up, right? I don't know anything about like the world of nonfiction, so I had to like for like a year I would watch like BookTube so I could understand like avid readers like who are they, what they're like, and that what makes sense to them, that kind of thing. I just don't know that world, but I have this story that came to me, and funny enough, that story is one of the reasons I started this channel. Is one of the major reasons I started this channel. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing a book. I'm actually done with the book. I'm in the editing process. There was a scene I had to write, and the scene resembled a scene from the movie Shogun Assassin, if you guys are into like old movies. And so I had to watch Shogun Assassin a bunch of times to really get the essence of it and then like write it without trying to like recreate the exact scene, that kind of thing. I'll do my Yes, keep it compartmentalized. Smaller bits are easier to digest mentally. Okay, I'll do my congrats on your book. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you. I'll do my hey there. I'd love to hear you talk about the role of storytelling in your spiritual practice and if you have a favorite protagonist from a tale or a myth. Gabe, that's a dope question. I appreciate that. The role of storytelling. So I have come to realize that everything I'm sharing is most effectively shared through stories. I can give you the raw data all I want, but the things that people come back to me and are able to recite or they're aware of or they pick things up from are the stories. So I always try to put a story in one of my videos. In my own personal practice, like my own spiritual practice, of course, I'm writing a story. The more I look into ancestral spirituality, the more I see things like archetypes and story all around the place. I've also realized that I'm not really leaving my children's education in the hands of like the public school system and things like that. Like we'll send them there for like legal whatever, and of course I expect them to get the best grades possible and that kind of thing. But I've come to realize that we're the ones that are going to be teaching our kids. I'm the ones that's going to be teaching my kids because these teachers are so damn. So one of the things I tend to, or I do, and I do about just about every night, is I always tell my kids stories from Igbo cosmology and Igbo folk tales and things like that. And I've realized that that's actually how my children are going to learn these traditions. That's how any child is going to learn these traditions, that kind of thing. You give them the story first. You give them the songs. I add songs and things like that. You give them the songs so that when they're old enough to digest the bigger concepts, the kind of just falls in place because they already know the song and the story and that kind of thing. It clicks, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I do. Thank you very much for that. And then of course, like I said, I'm currently writing a book. I'm editing it. I am about. The editing has been so slow. The story itself came to me in one gust of spirit. So just it just hit me, and I just wrote. I ended up writing. I ended up writing the entire book in about 2 months, 2.5 months, and I think it's going to be a long book, but um, and then now editing it, that's kind of left me, and it's good that it's good that it has, because you're supposed to edit with a sober mind, so with your own with a more sober mind and that kind of thing, and it's just a slow ass process. So one of the things that writing a book has taught me is that a lot of the things we do, it's not really us doing it. We're just vessels for things for currents that flow into the world and out. And I was grateful to be the vessel for this particular. You guys are coming with it. What colors? What colors are connected to each market day? Nigerius, I'm not the best person to answer this. I do know that Urie has an association with red. I know that Eke has the association with white and black. But the reason I say I'm not the best is because I'm still blank on Nkwo, and I'm semi blank on Afo, though I suspect yellow is a part of that. Um, Black might also be Eke and white might also be Urie. But the four colors you're going to be dealing with are going to be black, white. Hold on. black, white, yellow, red, or red, yellow. And so I know that those four colors are associated with those 4 days, or 4 colors of creation. Um, Black would definitely be Eke, and white would probably be Nkwo. Red is Urie, and then yellow would be Afo. Now, this is my own personal deduction. I could be wrong. It's not something I spent too much time thinking about. Odinma. Uh, how big slash detail are astral traveling in Odinani? Each person is able to do it to their own ability. So there are some people who can travel in very vivid detail. There are some people who travel in dreams, and most things are vague, but then some things are clear. There are some people, it just depends on your ability. Some people have a gift, some people don't. I do believe it is a gift you can train. I actually have a book on astral travel in the library. It kind of just breaks down what it is, and I think I haven't read it all, but to my memory, it also talks about how to like improve, like to do it well. So if you're interested, just message me. If you're on Patreon, if you're not on Patreon, join, come hang out. Cool, cool, cool. Hi there. I'd love to hear you talk about the. Okay, that was a really good question, Gabe. Hello, just arrived. Kofo Ndewo, welcome, welcome, welcome. Can the maiden spirit manifest in the physical world? Absolutely, and it does all the time. It does all the time. Yeah. Um, yeah, absolutely, and does all the time. So the answer is yes. Um, all of us embody certain abara more than others, right? Based on who we are and our context to our community. So there's a thing in Igbo culture that said that a young woman belongs to the world of water, an older woman belongs to the world of earth. It's actually one of the reasons for female circumcision, which they used to do back in the day, not so much anymore, or not really at all anymore. But that's one of the reasons they used to do it, because it was believed that those parts belong to the world of water, right? And that also for males, the male circumcision as well. But yeah, so if you kind of understand that saying that a young woman belongs to the world of water, an older woman belongs to the world of earth, um, you'll kind of understand how it manifests in the real world. YouTube stated that most DBS, though they marry, don't connect with their spouses. Don't connect with their spouses. What he said is because of spiritual powers. Yeah, yeah, a lot of DB, a lot of DBS, almost every DBA that I've encountered regulates their sexual activity based off of like, okay, I'm not gonna have sex on these days because I work on these days, and in order for me to work on these days, I need to be my spirit needs to be strong, right? And oftentimes the act dims the fire that they need to do their work. But yeah, so a lot of them do that. We have an in-house DBA. I mean, I don't know if he wants me to share his business. We have an in-house DBA on Patreon. So if you guys want readings and things like that, it's there. But he's the one that I really had an in-depth conversation on about that. So yeah, it's just based off of like when I need to work. If I'm working, I'm not doing that. If I'm doing that, I'm not working. That kind of thing. And so there's certain days where he won't do readings because this is me and the wife time, that kind of thing. So I don't know. But yeah, yeah, that's common. Hey, Rasan Carl Fernandez, man, I haven't seen that name in a long time. How have you been? There, well, Darius, I feel like I haven't seen that name, but maybe it's 'cause I haven't gone live in about a week or two. Why so many staggering between Igbo and Yoruba, like Irish, Orisha? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So why are so many words in Igbo and Yoruba similar? It's the same. The language has the same origin, right? So at one point, it was all the same people. We were all the same people, and then just because of geography and distance, languages started sounding different. But we're all from the Kwa language family. The cultures are almost identical. The languages are very close to each other. If you want to think of like maybe English or that kind of thing. Languages are kind of close to each other. I think Yoruba they say etsi for ear. Igbo we say nti. Um, Things like that. Orisha, Rishi. You'll see it all over the place. But yeah, similar cultures. And then, of course, just years of trade and being close to each other. We're not really that close to each other, actually. There's a bunch of people in between us, but being relatively close to each other and that kind of thing. But yeah, the languages have a similar origin, have a common origin, right? I know that origin, but if I said it now, people will start arguing. Your children speak Igbo? Yes, my son speaks Igbo. He's learning Igbo. I not only do I speak Igbo to him and teach him, he's also signs up for the he's signed up for the Kedu children's classes. Um, by the way, if you guys don't know, I have an Igbo language school and it has children's classes. So, like, if you want your kids to learn the Igbo language, it works. So yeah, he speaks. He hears 100%. He speaks maybe 20, 18%. But we're working on it. We're getting there. So once he turns 6, the rule was him and I, we don't communicate in English anymore. Because before it was I would just speak Igbo to him, then he'd respond in English. Now he has to respond to me in English. It was inspired by a friend whose dad did the same for her, and she speaks fluently. So I'm not speaking English with them anymore. Every now and then I will slip. I will slip and start speaking English though, because it's my first language. Uh, what are some good Igbo stories to tell a child? Man, that is a good ass question, and there's so many. Take a lot of the stories from the channel. So I always try to include stories in my videos. I should. One of the things I had an idea to do was, and I'm not saying I'm going to do it because I'm really backlogged on things I need to do. Um, is I wanted to take all the stories that I told on the channel and then just kind of have like a playlist, like where it's just or like a one long video, just story after story. So you can use stories from the channel. There are really good books with stories in them. I would look at stories about Mbe the tortoise. Mbe the tortoise is a good one for kids. Mbe the tortoise is like if you're like it's like he's a trickster, right? He's a trickster. I think the same archetype as like Burr Rabbit and that kind of thing. Which then later becomes Bugs Bunny. So Bugs Bunny, all right. Mbe the tortoise is a good one. There's the story of Wanza. Wanza. There's all types of really good stories. There's a story of Ojadili, the strongest man of all time. There's the story of Eringa, the superwoman. They're both wrestlers. There's just a lot of really good stories. It's a very story dense, story rich culture, and I think that if there's something to emphasize, it'd be that aspect. If you want to teach your kids just the whole shebang, just give them the stories. But yeah, I would get storybooks. I think I have a story folder in the Patreon too with like different stories in it. Yeah, I think I do. If I don't, then I should make one. But yeah. Do you do speaking engagements? If you want to invite me, yeah. It was one of my goals for this last year that passed, but I didn't get any speaking engagements. So, yeah, if you want to invite me, I'd be very open to that idea. I think that'd be great. And I'm actually I'm a trained speaker, right? I'm actually a trained speaker, so it's a skill set that I don't leave the house. So if anything that gets me out of the house, let's do it. Yeah. So yes, but I do speaking engagements. If you're interested, just send me an email. My email should be there on the description of this video. If the land Allah gives people their spirituality, and there are different types of spirituality around. Good question. Influenced by geography, does that essentially mean that there are blah blah blah? Scotty, that's a really good question. Different types of Allah. Yeah, so Scotty, that's a really good question. And there's one Allah, but she gives everybody what they need on their land. So each land is going to speak a different thing, if that makes sense, right? Each land is going to give people a different thing. You're going to receive different things from different parcels of land, different inspiration, different spirit, that kind of thing. But it's all one. It's all one, right? That kind of thing. And if you look at all of the indigenous spiritualities all over the world, it's going to have the coding of the geography, but in essence, they're going to be saying something very similar, if not identical, if you're able to see in the abstract. Um, what happens is Allah gives you what is called akko. Ako. Ako is a current or a spirit or a wave of inspiration that comes from the earth and enters you as a person. In English, it is called intellect, right? And through that ako that you're receiving from the land, specifically for you're receiving that from the land, right? People think it's this. It's not this. This is a receiver. This is a receiver. You're receiving ako from the land. As you're receiving ako from the land, you are going to express it because it's an impulse, right? It's an impulse. It's a wave. It's like an abstract pattern, right? Like you know when they do those ink blot tests where there's an ink blot and then you will make sense of it through your own what you know and your own intellect, and your own imagination and your own collective mind. So everybody is receiving alcohol at all times, but we're going to express it in our own specific ways. So you'll have a culture that is going to describe maybe they all get the general idea about the earth. She's a woman, this, and that, but based on their own way of piecing together what a woman is, what a mother is, she's gonna look different in their depictions. She's gonna have a different, some different characteristics and that kind of thing. But it's the same wave that ran through you, right? It's the same wave that ran through you. It's like when you go to the club, there's one song playing, but everybody's doing different dance moves. That's really what it is. We're all being animated by the same spirit, but there is that part of us that is um, our own interpreter, and from there we do our own thing based off of it. There's an ilu that says the bird builds its nest with what it finds on the forest floor, right? So if you go to a forest floor where there's a lot of plastic, you're going to see a lot of plastic in the bird's nest. If you go to a forest floor where there's a lot of twigs, you're going to see a lot of twigs in the bird's nest. And if you go to a muddy forest floor, you're going to see a muddy bird's nest. But either way, we're all being inspired by the same ako that says, build this type of structure to put your children, that kind of thing. Odemma. Um, Please explain the ability for one to receive messages from trees in Igbo. Hey, Dibia! Kofo, if you can receive messages, or a person, let me not say you, if a person can receive messages from trees, then they are a Dibia. They are a Dibia. That is a Dibia gift. And as you are the one who can do it and others can't, the way our ancestors see it, you are a custodian for that gift, to use it in service of those who need it and those who cannot. And then also for the trees as well, right? So the trees can't speak to me, right, to my knowledge, but they can speak to you or whomever you're asking a question for. So you're the one who's going to may need to communicate between the two of us when I'm coming to cut the tree down or whatever I'm coming to do, right? But that is a Dibia gift. It is related to Aro Binago. Aro Binago. So earlier I said that the land gives you ako, which is these waves of inspiration, these waves of what we call thoughts, right? Or English intellect, right? It comes from the trees as well, right? All earth trees, they're not two different things. It comes from the plants, that comes from the trees. At home, Dibias figure out what heals what by touching the plants or by speaking to the plants or communicating with the plants. Gofo, the gift you have is very, very, very powerful and important. And it is how a lot of our culture was put together. It was by direct communication with nature. I hope that makes sense. Scotty, your question was great and it made perfect sense. I thought about sending your children an African, about sending, oh, wow, oh, thank you so much for that. Oh, have you thought about sending your children to African-centered schools? They have some online, like Uhuru Academy. So I actually know a guy who has an African university, and I'm actually wondering, this is going to sound really bad, but I actually think it's Uhuru. I think I know the guy that does Uhuru. But I don't want to assume that's the name of his, but I'm almost positive that's it. But I know the guy who did that, and he's a brilliant guy, and his mind is in the right place. And him and I, we said we're going to work together in some capacity. I don't know, and we don't know yet. My sending the child to the African centered school. What this is what I know. I right now, like my kids are well ahead of where they're supposed to be because I know how to teach. Right, they're well ahead of, so they're going to school for like appearances. we tried to talk to their teacher, but the shit wasn't entering her head. And so, or my son's teacher, the shit wasn't entering her head, like that kind of thing. And so, whatever school they go to, I'm the one that's going to teach my wife and I, right? Honestly, my wife does more of the teaching now than I do, but we're the ones that are going to be teaching them. So it doesn't really matter what school they go to. When I say that I'm going to be the one in charge of the education, I mean that they're going to come home, they're going to do what they need to do for school. Then okay, now we're going to talk about what we're doing. So right now, my son is really into planets. He can break down this entire galaxy like you wouldn't believe. Um, and I'm going to be encouraging that and so on and so forth, but whether or not that's what's going on in school. So it doesn't really matter what school I send them to or what school I send my kids to. And I think they're going to understand that as they get older. The schools I went to have fuck all to do with what I know. But yeah, an African centered school would be cool. Or just taking them back home, which I plan on doing as well. Hey Derek, infinite peace, infinite Durong, Dalu one there. Prosperity, yes. If Calabar chalk is Calabar chalk the same as Zinzu? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The one I found are more beige than white. Yeah, Calabar chalk is the same as Nzu. It's the same. They're all classified as the same. So that's fine. You'll get Nzu will come in different colors, like different tints. There's not like a perfect Nzu. So it's gonna come in different tints. It'll come in different textures, and sometimes it'll be in different tastes. There's one Nzu that's delicious, like the really soft, chalky one. I eat the hell out of that. But then there's like a really granular one that I don't like. My wife was an Nzu fiend when she was pregnant with my daughter, and my when my daughter was born, the nurse went and called like a student nurse went and called like a senior nurse to check out the baby because she can control her neck because she can hold her neck. And the senior was like, no, 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 that's fine, that's normal. But she didn't tell us that she thought it was a problem. She didn't know why this baby came out being able to do this. I was like, if you knew what this child was eating, you'll know why she's built like a rock. Adumma. Thoughts on blood money? Yeah, it's crazy, but it's out there. Blood money is crazy, but it's out there. I'm not involved. Can you play four big guys, please? I don't know what that means. Thank you. Do you think Unqual would be indigo or purple since it's the market day connected with Aro Binago? Oh, that's a good question. But no, I don't think so. Because when I look at like the colors that are used ritually, those are the four. I don't see indigo. The only place I really see indigo is with like Aro and Osu people. So but again, Nigeria side could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm piecing it together with my own logic. I could be wrong. How many dialects of Igbo are there? In my opinion, it damn near infinite. It's hard to count because every single town, traditionally, every town in Igbo land is its own country. Every town is its own country, right? So when I like sometimes I'll get on here, I'll talk to people and they'll be like, "Oh, um, I ask them where they're from." They're like, "Oh, my mom's from there." I'm like, I'm asking you what country you belong to. That's really what I'm asking, right? So every town was its own country, and every town spoke its own variation of Igbo, its own dialect. And then even within the town, there are dialects in there. That's why I'm saying you can't count them. There's probably like, I mean, if somebody told me there was like 10,000 to, I don't know how many Igbo towns there are, but there's 40, 50 million of us. So there's a lot of towns. And then those towns have subsects that have their own little dialects. Like in my own family, we have our own little dialect, right? Like we say loy loy, where and nobody knows what loy loy is, but loy loy is Gary, that kind of thing. We say there's a lot of things we say that, after a while becomes its own thing. But yeah, it's hard to know how many dialects of Igbo there are. Every town has its own dialect, and then every like region has its own dialect. So my dialect is very similar to somebody from Olo. It's very similar to somebody from Oguta. It's very similar to somebody from Idemmili. Or Idemmili, as we say. It's very similar to somebody from, I'm trying to think of who else is in that area. Whew. Anyways, yeah, that's in that zone. There's a zone that I'm from. We kind of sound like each other, right? We say woo, like awum onye, blah blah blah, as opposed to abum onye, which is more central. But then if I cross the river, they say boo. So it's hard to count it. What is the Igbo traditional way for getting in a relationship when a person finds interest in another one? What's the process? Like, how do you get in a relationship with somebody who's already with somebody else? Mr. Steal Your Girl over here. All right, so what is the Igbo traditional way to get in a relationship when a person finds interest? Oh, with like, okay, when you're interested in another person. I mean, there's no traditions around like falling for somebody. I know that just traditionally, you don't meet somebody's parents until you're trying to get married, until you guys are like, in fact, really, traditionally, you don't meet the parents until the marriage process is already in motion, right? But you don't meet parents, you don't introduce those of you that have Nigerian boyfriends and like things like that. That's why you ain't met the parents yet. But you don't meet parents until you're about to get married. Um, there's I can't think of anything about like specifically on like starting relationships. That's just based on the individual's own riz, as the young people say, right? Yeah, yeah. So, there's nowhere in Africa where people are governed by tradition, right? They partake in tradition, but they're not governed by it. If that makes sense. So it's not like this is the way we get in relationships. Somebody has a certain ginger to them and they have more quote unquote riz than the next person. Then that's his traditional way of doing it. So I don't know. Hope you understand what I'm saying when I say that. If individual people have a chi, does that mean that the collective people also have a chi? Absolutely. Yes, yes. Every collective of people has a chi, right? So this gathering we have here, there's a chi, it has its own chi, right? My family has its own chi. Any group you're in has its own chi, that kind of thing. And understanding that chi and having a relationship with that chi, especially if it's a long term or a very important relationship or bond that you have or that you're a part of, is a part of keeping that group together and keeping that group alive and keeping that group healthy, right? A lot of institutions and organizations and nations, they fall apart because they deviate from their chi, right? That kind of thing. Like a collective chi. Absolutely. Yeah. People having a collective chi. That's what Amadioha is. That's what Amadioha is, the collective chi of a people. The collective will of a people, the collective ikenga of a people is Amadioha. That's what Amadioha is, right? So that kind of thing. And well, does your divine wisdom from Eke manifest from different okay, oh, that's dope. Yeah. No, that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah. So Eke is now Allah. And or some people say. And so what is coming from Eke is Ako, which is intellect. Eke is creation. The wisdom we receive from and for creation is intellect, right? So it's not just like people think that, oh, like for example, if we use like an Abrahamic thing, whenever like God is talking to somebody, it's always like a moment, like, oh, God's talking to me right now, or God's talking to you through the fucking bush, or that kind of thing. And the way we see it is my very thought process, the capacity to think is divine intellect. The capacity to think itself is this constant flow of divine intellect, and that, yeah, divine intellect, and that intellect, just thinking, intellect, perception, that is coming from Eke, for Eke. You use intellect to perceive and exist in reality, right? That kind of thing. So yes, chi receives uche. You receive uche from chi. You receive ako or aro from Eke. Great question. Man, you guys are killing it with the questions today. Okay, all right. Well, how does divine wisdom? Okay, already got that one. All Kwa languages have a common root, according to Professor Achalono. Yes, and I believe Professor Achalono and I have the same idea where that root comes from. But yeah, all Kwa languages have the same root. Yeah. You stated once a long time ago that you notice DBS tend to be slightly feminine. Isn't white? Yeah, yeah. Does that have to do with Arobinago or some other reason? It's not something I've personally noticed. It's just something that's said, and in the sense that a DBA is not going to be a tough guy, right? A DBA is not going to be a tough guy, and NY is not going to be like dainty. right? That kind of thing. Um, and we can see it. You see it everywhere, right? You see it everywhere. If you think of your average, like, if doctor, you're not that's not your the idea that comes to mind is not a tough guy. It's not what we're experiencing, right? There's some tough guy ass doctors out there, absolutely, but that's not what we're not that's not what we're seeing, right? Like, that kind of thing. um but yeah, does that have to do with Arobinagon or some other reason? It has to do with the fact that they are operating. So Agun, the spirit that leads Adibia is two-headed, both male and female, right? Both male and female, and they're channeling both at all times, right? It said that in order for Adibia to fully master their abilities, they have to make Agun the mother and Agun the father speak to each other, right? They have to make them speak to each other. When they're depicted, typically depicted. Why am I doing my hand like that? They're typically depicted facing away, but you're supposed to make them do this with each other, right? Talk to each other. If you look at the symbol for medicine in the West with the two snakes facing each other, yeah. Uh, According to her, Igbo is the closest to the root language. Yes, Igbo is the root language. Can you explain at an intermediary or advanced level what an Oza is? Intermediary or divine king, there, um, what an Oza is. Okay, yeah. An Oza is a person who has whose Okay, so everybody has a chi, of course, right? And so let's say our chi's over here. Most of us are kind of like here or here. We're kind of just doing this. We're trying to get to the middle. And Ozo is a person who has done this, is locked in, and has made both of those, their chi and their self, are one. And because they are one with chi and self, they are a living ancestor, because your ancestor is a part of this big complex known as your chi. They're a living ancestor, right? The Alzor ceremony is a ritual death. Your previous identity dies, you come back as an Alzor. Which is the revealing of the full self, the achievement of Awele. Best way to explain Awele is like the blooming of a flower, right? So that's it. You're a living example of your own chi. You're willing to say that. You're willing to be that. And because you are that, typically a person who's an Alazar is also going to be a leader in the community. It's also going to be a person that people defer to and listen to. It's going to be the person who, when it's time to speak, let him talk. He's the one that's going to speak for us, that kind of thing. And because of that, an Alazar lives by a certain set of rules and a certain set of principles that govern their Alzar. Now, seems from my research to have come later than Nze and Alzar are related to each other, right? Nze is older and Alzar is younger, and Alzar is in most places more expensive to become an Alzar than to become an Nze, to my knowledge, right? But in some places, the other way around. It's not universal. In my place, Nze is higher than Alzar. Where I'm from, Nze is higher than Alzar. In a lot of places, Alzar is higher than Nze. And so, and also the reason also becoming an Alzar is expensive is because it's at that point you're showing that you're a fully actualized man. And if you're a fully actualized man, prove it, right? So I think the last I checked, and this is old data, but it was like $10,000 in Onitsha to do the Alzar ceremony. And different communities will have their different prices, but they're always way up there, that kind of thing. But an Alzar should be able to easily do that. If you're an Alzar, you should be able to easily do that, that kind of thing. Because if my dad actually broke this down for me. So there's three types of Ipa. Ipa is like cultivation that a person does to show, which shows that their chi has fully is in full bloom and lived and did well in this life, right? Which is Ipa Madam, right? To cultivate people, Ipa Kon to cultivate wealth, and Ipa Chi to cultivate your chi, right? To cultivate your spirit, your chi, your God, your connection to God, right? Or to your God. So all three of those things, when a person does all three of those things, people know that they've lived a good life. And those are people who will typically reincarnate into many children, and they will be celebrated as a higher ancestor, an onyegede. But as that person is living, if a person is that, then we make that person an also, or that person becomes an also. So that is kind of an explanation of also. Um, Again, most also are really rich people, really rich, really rich people. What is what you just described the same thing as different spiritualities, the same as the difference between different. Yeah. Hold on. Nami, what's up? Or all right, you got see. I try to read the email. See? I try to read the email. I try to read email. No. Okay, so anyways, as I was saying, so somebody said, why describe the different spiritualities? Yeah, so it's all one spirituality. All spirituality is the same thing. We're all observing the same thing. Now we're gonna have different interpretations based off of our own intellect, right? Um, but that's what it is. Our ancestors used to say that that Chuku smoked the pipe. And the reason I say Chuku smoked the pipe is because of the clouds, right? So that's something that somebody of that time would say that would make sense in their own intellect. Another person would say there's clouds and maybe it's from, I don't know, the Great Fire in Mount Olympus, that kind of thing. It's just different things. But yeah, all of it is one spirituality, and that's what different spiritualities come from. Religion is different because religion is like a state, like a government codifying a spirituality or codifying a culture, really. Codifying a culture and saying, this is the standard, right? This is the standard. That's a religion. This is the standard we're going to live by, that kind of thing. So, first, okay. Is there a curriculum that you are using for children, or is it based on interest? Oh, that's really cool. That is a good question. I follow their interests, though there are that I will put in front of them because it's necessary. So, for those who don't know, it is very easy to get about a 2 year old to learn how to read and write very proficiently. Naturally, they're into letters. That's why all the children's shows are about letters and things like that. So by the time they're two, by the time my son was two, he was reading. I don't know if what did I use? A lot of games. You just a lot of games that deal with like reading and alphabet and things like that. Nandi, how did you learn how to read? Quero que botar o tio gago, going here.
So I don't know actually.
You say Amadim.
Amadim.
Amadim. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of games. So like reading, math.
Wait, are you telling a story about me?
Yeah, somebody asked me, onye jụrụ m, kedu otu m ji akụzi ụlọ ihe, like ịgụ ihe, ma ime math and that kind of thing. So yeah, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so a lot of games, a lot of following their own interests. Like my son's super interested in space right now, so right now, if he can probably take a college test about space and that kind of thing, getting out of their way, kids. Your brain works better when you're a child than when you're an adult, right? Your brain works better as a child than an adult. So people always think that you should do the complicated things as an adult and do simple things as a child, but it's actually the other way around. If you put something very complicated in front of a child, they can piece it together very easily because their thinking is not as codified, and that kind of thing. So I don't really have a set curriculum. I just know what is important. Them learning their language, them learning their culture, reading, writing, math, and then just moral type of learning how to think for yourself, learning how to piece things together for yourself, that kind of thing. Answering questions. A kid asks you a question. Okay, so I don't know if I got disconnected just then. I said reconnecting, so I don't know. I'm just gonna keep talking. Historians and firsthand accounts have highlighted parallels between Omenal and Debo with traditions and practices from the Torah, from Yes, Mr. Sharp and Dalu, thank you very much. Why do you think so many are offended by the idea of Igbos having ancestral connections to the Levant Israeli culture? Because it's annoying. It's annoying. That's why we're I'm being asked why so many Igbo people or people are offended or annoyed by that. Hold on, I'm coming. Yeah, there are things in Igbo land that are minimum 4,000. No, why am I being generous? There are artifacts in Igbo land that are damn near, not even exaggerating, not pulling numbers out of nowhere, 90,000 years older than any evidence of life in the Levant, right? Any evidence of human life, any evidence. And it's not like little trinkets and beads. It's evidence of mass existence, mass existence, right? So to say that the Levant, for like 7 to 13 million people, somehow created an offshoot culture of 50 to 40 million people is unbelievably ridiculous, especially if culture 50 to 40 million is out tens and thousands of years as a known historical fact older than said Levant culture. So what makes everybody have to come from the Levant? Well, because a lot of people's favorite book is about that place. It wasn't written by people from there, but a lot of people's favorite book. So what if it wasn't the Bible? What if the Byzantine Empire said we're going to make Star Wars. We're gonna make Star Wars the state religion. Then everybody was like, "Oh, I'm a Naboo. Are Igbos from Naboo? Oh man, is that a Debia or a Sith?" And then after a while, you start getting annoyed that everything in your culture keeps getting compared to Star Wars because somebody in the Byzantine Empire decided that's going to be the state religion for all these people that they rule over, right? Which didn't involve you. You weren't even involved, right? And so the a lot of that has seeped into our academia back home. It's destroying a lot of actual like serious historical work. It's goofy. It's it's and there's so many things that let's say we like it's just asinine. So that's why we get annoyed by that. That's why some of us get annoyed by that, right? That's why imagine saying like I don't even like sometimes I say things I hope people can understand the depth of context by which I'm saying these things. But how can a culture that as a proven archaeological geological fact, forget about your little Harry Potter book, as a concrete undeniable fact is no less than 90,000 years older than any evidence of human life in the place you're claiming, this desolate, rocky ass place that can't support a large population, somehow is the origin of all these different people, right? Or is the origin of this? It's just everybody's favorite book happens to be written by about that place, right? Where's Huckleberry Finn from? Like Mississippi or something? Can you imagine if Huckleberry Finn became like, if the Byzantine Empire said, oh, let's make Huckleberry Finn the state religion? I'm like, are the Igbos from Mississippi? Or the Igbos from, oh, we're the descendants of Nigger Jim, you know? It's, so yeah, it's a book. It's not even a book. It's a library of books that the Byzantine Empire decided that, you know what? Let's just have everybody just read this one, right? It's a canon. People make canons all the time. If you go to YouTube and see my top 5 books for the summer, that's all that shit is. That's all the Bible it is. It's just a very powerful person's top 5 books for the summer. Or how many books are in the Bible? 12? I don't know how many books are in the Bible. Whatever, that kind of thing. But either way, that's what it is. And so, but it's so influential. It's an unbelievably influential, as we all know. It's the basis of the modern world. And so, because of the influence it's had through colonialism, through just spreading naturally, all these different things, through the damn Byzantine Empire, through the Romans, Crusades, all that stuff. No, I don't think Crusades, but all that stuff. Everybody now has to. Okay, am I a Sith or am I a Naboo or am I a fucking? You know what I mean? Like, what if Pokemon became the state religion? Oh, do the Igbos come from like? Let's actually talk about real life historical, like actual facts of life. There are plates in Igbo land that are older than human life in Eurasia, than Homo sapien presence in Eurasia. Okay, and this is just it's just known. It's known. It is known. It's a known thing. Okay. So with that being a known thing, it becomes annoying when people keep, oh, we gotta be, and it's like, why do I have to be? What does that even mean? What does that mean? What does it mean for a group of people to come from Israel? Because a person who doesn't read the Bible would think that the Bible is all about how good Israel is. But every chapter of the Bible is about Israel fucking up. Israel fucking up. God tried to give them a chance, they blew it. God tried to give them a chance, they blew it. Okay, God's got to destroy them now. Bring them back. Okay, we'll try it again. They blew it. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of people screwing up, right? It's just a bunch of people screwing up. You know how like the Charlie Brown thing where Lucy holds the ball and then Charlie runs and tries to kick it and she pulls it away, right? That kind of thing. What if it's like, oh, what? Are we descendants of Snoopy, or are we a descendant? No, it's a book about a group of people constantly screwing up. So if that's like, it's not about them building nothing or inventing anything or doing it. It's just a group of people that the Byzantine Empire said this should be the fucking book, and they're a lot younger than we are, so we can't be from them. There's more of us than them. They don't even exist anymore. I mean, let me not say that for YouTube shuts this thing. All right, guys. Back to reality. YouTube's about to shut this one down. I was told that Odinani is against interracial marriages. You guys would come with this. I was told. My Igbo friend said my Ndiche would be angry with me. Okay. I think the name is Stella. I don't. You have to. Okay. What does Ndiche mean? Your ancestors, right? It means your ancestors. How can your friend tell you what your ancestors are going to do? My son has 3 little best friends he plays with outside. How can those kids tell my son what I'm going to do or like or think? Like when we say ancestors, sometimes I think people think we're talking about like magical spirits and fictitious beings. These are real people. We're not talking about beliefs. These are real humans. These are real people. This is real life. This is reality. That's what an ancestor is, a person you come from. So your Igbo friend can't tell you what your ancestors are going to like or not like. Maybe your ancestors won't like it. Maybe a lot of people's ancestors are not going to like that, right? But is it against Odinala, or is it just your fucking ancestors are kind of racist? Right? That kind of thing. You're the one who's going to tell your friend what your ancestors think about interracial marriage. Now, most of our ancestors would like us to be within our own group. That's a given. That's a given. Because if you talk to most of our parents, right, especially if you're not American, I think Americans are more open to different shit. Or people on the Western Hemisphere are just more open to that idea. People on the Eastern Hemisphere are not as open because they're old world cultures, you know. So a lot of old world cultures are not into it, but it's not against or for Odinala. It's just maybe you have a couple of ancestors that don't mess with it. But if you do a DNA test, you'll be shocked to find that you're mixed up with all these different things, and it's not. Do what you want too, and then also, anyways, let me leave that alone. But yeah, quit. You guys have to stop with this. It would be great. It would be good if you guys stop this. My friend told me my ancestors, and anybody tells me my friend told me my ancestors, and then we're gonna sit down and really think about that statement. My friend told me my ancestors blank. My friend told me somebody told me my ancestors blank. Nobody can tell you about your ancestors. Nobody can tell you about your chi. You're gonna tell me about your ancestors. Oh, I descend from a woman named Mary Llewellyn, and she did yada yada yada, and she was this kind of person and that kind of thing. Okay, great. Imagine one of my son's friends coming and telling him, your dad just talked to me, and he said you should. You're the one that's connected to your ancestors. You don't let anybody tell you who your ancestors are or what they think or believe. You go find out. Okay, cool. Do you think blood/animal sacrifice is actually important for a community or a people to flourish? Just got done watching Apocalypse. I think people can survive without it. The human animal is very adaptive. I don't think it's like nothing is like a must, right? Nothing is a must in existence. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to I see. Gosh, I get my channel shut. There's a lot of benefits to it. I'm not out here sacrificing animals and people that we're referring to apocalypto. I'm not out here referring to it, but one of the things, I don't. I wish you didn't say apocalypto because anything I say is gonna sound crazy. So I'm gonna leave your question at there are benefits. That's why a lot of different cultures do it, but don't do it. Don't do what they did in apocalypto, please. I'm a screenwriter and I struggle with trying to visually depict spirituality. Okay, that's dope. Or the ethereal without being corny, because it feels like people need to see a talking bush to understand. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me reread that. I'm a screenwriter and I struggle with trying to visually depict spirituality and the ethereal without being corny because it feels like people do. Yeah, yeah, Gabe, 100%. People think it's like this like extraordinary thing when it's literally the most ordinary thing in the world. It's just it is ordinariness in like personified, right? It's the default. And so if sometimes I know people, I'll like people come to me and I'll give them an answer and I can tell they're bored with the answer, like it wasn't Harry Potter enough, and then they go somewhere else, right? Or they just like, oh, I'm gonna stop asking. Well, he don't know nothing, kind of thing. So yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a lot, and I understand exactly what you're talking about. Um, because yeah, I think people need it to be fantastical to think, oh, it's a spirit, it's a this, it's a that, that kind of thing. Like people will ask me, how do I know who my ancestors are? It's like, man, ask your dad, ask your mom, And people don't like that answer. People want to like have like a big ass like what happened during Wakanda and they showed up in the sky. People want that to happen, which does happen. It does happen, but it's not always necessary. Jewelry is related to many West African cultures and to never dying. Do Igbo people have an explanation to this? I don't know too much about that, but that's powerful and wow. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that. Darius, thank you. I didn't know that that meant that to different West African cultures. I know that it's that's tied into my daughter's name. Funny enough, so I'll share that with her when she's a little more coherent. What is the traditional Igbo view towards homosexuality? I'm skipping that one. Can you say the N word? Yes, I can. Are two lobe cola eaten? Yes, two lobe cola are eaten. They're called guro. We call them guro. Why do they look? Why do they look? I'm sorry. It's not that you typed it wrong, because my brain just shut off. And why are they looked at the way like how they are? Okay, all in the same batch. Yeah. So two lobe cola are known as guro, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly fine. And they two lobe cola are typically not native to Igbo land. They're from different parts of Africa. But any cola you use is fine, except if it breaks in six. If it breaks in six, like let's say we're having a meeting and I break the cola and it has six pieces, everybody has to go home, no matter what the meeting is. Everybody has to go home, that kind of thing. So six lobe cola is the only one that people avoid. All of them are fine, but the four is the one that's special because the four represents those four market days. Eke, Uri, Afo, Nkwo. It represents Chi, Eke, Agu, Mo. It represents north, south, east, west, um, uh, light, water, earth, wind. Let's call it plasma. What's the second one? Liquid. Why can't I think? It's like second grade. What you want? Plasma or like fire. Liquid, solid, vapor, that kind of thing. So everything is represented. That's why it's so special. That's why it means so much. The three represents Ikenga. The two, Chineke. It's nothing. It's nothing bad. It's normal. Madonna mo. It's fine. If somebody gives you two-lobe cola. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. But a lot of like ritual applications will ask for a specific one because of what it represents. And because the four represents so many things, you now see why it gets used a lot more. But it's seen as like a proper cola, a proper Igbo cola, that kind of thing. Adrian, and there, well, Adrian, I feel like you're spelling your name differently. Yeah, but yeah, long time no talk. Yeah, the connections is going in and out. Okay, so if the connection is going in and out, I apologize. I should use my data. I'm in the middle of nowhere in America, so sometimes the Wi-Fi is crazy. I beg you, it's tiresome. Nebo, do not claim anything from the 11th. I don't know what the 11th is. Anytime I hear about Israelites or whatever, I instantly check out. Yeah, yeah. It's just like, okay, it's like, it's everybody's favorite book. It's like where everybody's favorite book is like, you know what I mean? But it could have been any book. It could have been any book. They could have picked any book. It could have been, you know what I mean? Like, it could have been anything. It could have been anything. Oh, I'm from Gotham. Or do we descend from Gotham City? Oh, I'm an ancestor of the joke. The Joker is one of my ancestors. That kind of thing. It could have been anything. And I'm not saying it's complete BS or whatever, but it's just that just has nothing to do with us. When they're putting those of you who are raised Christian, you can probably explain this better for me. They were writing letters to different places, like letter to Damascus, letter to wherever. There's no fucking letter to to Nsuka. You know what I mean? And that's okay. It's not. We're not talking about you. We're not talking about us. You know, it's okay. Harry Potter book. I don't die. Yeah, it's a book. Have you heard of the Insude pyramids? Yes, yes, I have. I have heard of them. Huck Finn, learning never ends, Udo. Yes. People tend to forget their history before the Bible. Absolutely. And they will let him. Hell, no vex my devia. Udo. The reason someone said this is the reason for them identifying with Jews. There's a lot of reasons that they identify with Hebrews. There's a lot of reasons, and they're all just like a byproduct of not being fully educated. And a lot of people that weren't fully educated very confidently just wrote annoying things and broadcasted annoying things, and now we're all stuck with it. But yeah, like okay, like the Jews circumcised their child on the eighth day. This is an Africa wide tradition. This is as wherever you see black African people, they do that. Okay? If anybody's arguing with you what complexion the people in the Bible were, you go to Africa for 7 seconds, you'll know, oh, okay, that's obviously, that kind of thing. You'll know. But to say that you come from that, no. You know what I mean? You know? Digital age has created a new sun. Never die, Uda. Well, how are y'all doing this fine evening? We're doing well, Million Bells, having a lot of fun. Chingwe Okoli. Nonfiction is like autobiographical or true to life. I think what you're writing would be carried as fiction. Okay, I'm tripping. Yeah, Chingwe, thank you. Finally, someone who went to school can help me out. Chingwe, thank you. Yeah, so I don't know how that world works. The classification system, all that stuff, because I always read like things that are more information or autobiographical. Um, but yeah, fiction. I'm writing a book. Yeah, duh, because the word fiction, fictitious. Yeah. Okay, yeah, duh. Yeah, I'm writing something fictitious. I'll do my light brings wealth to earth. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Do you consider yourself a pan-Africanist? Are you okay? That's a good question. Do you Doctor? Do you consider yourself a pan-Africanist? What are your general thoughts on the points that Dr. Umar raises about conscientious solutions for the future of our people? I think Dr. Umar is a good man with great intentions. I think he has a lot of love for our people, and I think that's rare. And because it's rare, people think he's talking out of his ass or he's crazy. But I think he's a good man. I think he's a great man, and I think that's a lot of what he's damn near everything he's saying makes perfect sense. Um, and he's a master at using the internet. That's why he's so funny. because that's just what gets things going. But yeah, do I consider myself a Pan-Africanist? To a limit. I don't follow the Pan-Africanist model. I'm more Afrocentrist than that Pan-Africanist, if that makes sense. But I don't follow the model of like we should all just be like one united like continent. Like I don't see that doesn't make too much sense to me. I don't trying to think of how my thoughts may differ from a Pan-Africanist. But I do see us as one global people. I do see um, the need for a consciousness of that singularity, where it's necessary. I don't think it's the solution to any of the problems people think it's a solution to. I don't think it's the first priority that everybody needs to be united, all that stuff. I don't think that's the first priority at all, and so forth. So, like, I understand Pan Africanism, but I'm probably more Afrocentric than I am Pan Africanist. Thank you for that good question. What's your opinion on the root of Kwa languages? It's Igbo. Connection has improved. Adama. Good, good, good. Do you believe that Igbos are industrious to the land, not, or I'm sorry, indigenous to the land, not having migrated from different parts of the continent? All evidence points to the fact that Igbo people have been where they're at for so long that their story is not a migratory story, right? So I think a lot of people, we tell history by way of migration a lot because of we're influenced by Europeans. Europeans got to where they were 5,000 ish. The people we're calling Europeans now, 5,000 ish, 6,000 ish years ago. So they tell history in a migratory way. This person migrated here, migrated there, that kind of thing. We've been where we're at for so long that it's not a migratory story. Because if you go back 5,000 years, we were there. Go back six, we were there. 7, 8, 9, 10, we were there. If you go back to numbers that I'm even having a hard time comprehending, all evidence says we were there. Now, did we come from somewhere? Yeah, definitely. I would look somewhere. I would look at like based on like if the haplogroup thing is something to pay attention to. Somewhere in Central Africa, somewhere from the Great Lakes region, um, all that kind of thing. But like the human, the again, Africans have been in their said locations for so long that their histories are not migratory histories. That if you want to start talking about where they come from, there's no way in hell you can trace it. It's just evidence doesn't even live that long, right? So when I think about Igbo history, it's not like a migratory history. I think a lot of Igbo people will tell you that their origins that they sprouted from the ground, right? And I used to think that was like, oh, it's because they didn't document their history. But now I get it now, right? I get it. It's true. They did. Something in my eye. Never mind. Do people have little people? Yeah, of course. All groups of people have little people. So it's believed that the people who first learned how to communicate with the earth are Nimbu. They are also known as Umuoshi. Umuoshi. Umuoshi were said to be dwarfs. And this is something that every Black African group will tell you the same thing. That the things they know, they learned it from a group of dwarves who predated them, who were the indigents of the land before them, right? And so Igbo people still have that same belief. We have this group study on Patreon, and so like all the patrons, we come together and we just discuss different topics. And there was one guy in there, just, the man's a genius. And he actually pointed out that if you look at a lot of like Ikenga and a lot of like traditional statues and things like that, that they're dwarfs, that they're dwarves. And I was like, really? Are you sure it's not just a stylistic thing? And he pointed out that no, because sometimes you'll see them with elongated limbs. So there's an awareness in why things are so stubby. Is an awareness. So Ikengas are usually depicting dwarves. All fall are usually depicting dwarves. In a lot of our traditions, like for example, in like the Ivory Coast, it is said that specifically dwarves with dreadlocks is how they're described. Dwarves with dreadlocks. The Ivory Coast, there's a tribe in the Ivory Coast, or an ethnic group, sorry, in the Ivory Coast, where once a person is in their process of initiation as a healer, they go into like a trance, and that trance causes them to run into the forest. And when they run into the forest, they see dwarves with dreadlocks. They're spirits, but they're dwarves with dreadlocks. And those people guide them and teach them what each plant is, and that, and so on and so forth. Um, which funny enough is the same thing in Igbo culture, but it said that we see Nenago or Arubinago at that point, right? So maybe Arubinago is a dwarf. But we see Arubinago at that point, and Arubinago or Neago, Agun the mother, Agun the feminine, guides you and teaches you different things. So yeah, we have, of course, just like any group of people, we have dwarfism, and then I think you're describing I'm trying to say the word Moetia. So we have I don't know anything about the word Moetia, but I can make a very strong guess as to what that means or like who it's referring to, and it's probably the same group that I was talking to. Everywhere in Black Africa, they talk about these people. So what do you think about Catherine Achalonu's writing about Ndibo? I think it was important. I think she highlighted a lot of things that were necessary to have been in, to been highlighted. A lot of things that needed to be highlighted, like Uguele and all these things. I think she reaches some conclusions that I would need a little more evidence for. Right, some of the conclusions she reaches, I'd need a little more evidence before I fully believe it. But what she highlighted and what she got going was unbelievably important and beneficial. Yeah, the only place I really see any discrepancy is like some of the conclusions that she reaches. But I had the opportunity to there's an organization that kind of preserves her legacy and her work, and they're doing Chukwu's work because it's important. And I had a chance to speak to her daughter, who's really cool, and the I think I don't know if he was like the head of it or just the guy communicating with me, but I had a chance to speak to them and that kind of thing. And yeah, so yeah, no, Dr. Achalano's work is very important. A lot of people who are doing incredible things in the space of like Denani education and things like that all are find their origins from her work, right? So she's an enlightener. She's that kind of thing. And so yeah, we're grateful for her. Can you tell us more about Tinsude pyramids if you know? Yeah, constructed or Denala. Yeah, so it's hard to find anything about them. Yeah, so the Tinsude pyramids are probably the last few remaining of this type, but they are shrines, and so those shrines are called Akwali Omomo, right? They're Akwali Omomo, and an Akwali Omomo shrine, an Omomo shrine is a shrine to the fertility, to earth fertility and the feminine energy of the earth, the feminine energy of the earth. That structure channels that. That structure channels that energy. Those pyramid structures channel that particular energy. And that's what they're for. And so that's, I think every community used to build them. It wasn't just in Sudan. Every community used to build them. I think the Insude ones were the last ones left because it's in a place called Enugu State, and the Europeans spent the least amount of time in Enugu and Ebonyi, what we're now calling Enugu and Ebonyi State. So it'll tell you who destroyed them, by the way, right? It'll tell you who did away with them. And so, but a lot of Igbo communities used to have the same thing. They channel earth energy, Omumu, feminine energy. So the Omumu is like the Ikenga is for men, the Omumu is that for women. So the Akwali Omumu channels the Omumu of the earth. And they become communication gateways, they become portals for fertility. If you go to my Twitter, it's Shell Medicine instead of Medicine Shell. If you go to my Twitter, there was this girl built this structure, and she's not like, she's not like, it's not like she was trying to do this on like conscious with her conscious mind, but she built this structure almost like intuitively. She's to my knowledge, she's some kind of scientist or botanist or something, and she built this structure, and she's like, oh, this thing would actually increase the fertility of this maybe garden or farm or something, and it's a pyramid kind of shape with like a swirl for water that comes down, that kind of thing. And I actually retweeted it, and I was like, this is 100% an Aquale Moon. Then she had an iron rod in the middle, which the lightning hits it, or lightning hits it, and then it feeds the earth, the energy from the lightning, which encourages growth. It's the same thing as an Aquale Moon, but it just came to her intuitively with her own intellect. So I did more. What do Igbo call the North Star? I don't know. What is the Igbo equivalent of an exercise? What can you tell you? I don't think I don't think there's an Igbo exercise that's different from exercise anywhere else. I know that there's this really cool thing they do in Enugu where everybody comes out and they run in the morning. And while they're running, they're playing ogene and they're all singing. It's like a call and what do you call it? Like a call and refrain, like na 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 na, that kind of thing. And so and then just run while playing the music and keeping their spirits up and that kind of thing. I'm definitely gonna take part in that the next time I go. But it's like a morning workout that people just seem to do in Enugu. So I mean that's the best example I can give you, but I don't. I mean it would just be exercise is exercise. Exorcism. Oh, that's a little bit above I don't want to say above. That's just not my area of knowledge. I don't know too much about like exorcisms and things like that. I'm an ethnocentric pan-Africanist now. I'll join Patreon, by the way. Okay, cool. Looking forward to seeing you. We'll have a group study in next week, and those are I like them. They're fun to me. So somebody says, "Wow, Pan African." Yes, Moeda comes from Akan. Yeah, I'm going Moetia. What do you know about Igbo shipbuilding? And what can we prove? How? That's a really good question because I think the maritime history of Africa is super interesting. There was a European person that came to the Niger River, the lower Niger they call it, which is like Igbo area. They said that there's as much boat traffic there as the space between like Scandinavia and Germany, right? And so I can't remember what that. I don't. For some reason, I'm not remembering what that's called. So, but he compared the two of them that they're very bustling with a lot of boat traffic. Some boats, as he described, were capable of carrying like 100 people, 100 men, cattle, heavy type things. So a lot of them were elongated canoe structures with like from the ones I've seen and know about with an awning is the word awning like a canopy, right? And usually the person in the canopy, maybe they're a leader, maybe they're a guest of honor, that kind of thing. Of course, road human power, and then like a lot of flags. So one of the places where the maritime culture of the region gets preserved really well is in the region we're now calling the Niger Delta. So a lot of the cultures will have a boat regatta, they call it, and they'll bring out their boats, their traditional boats. So you see a lot of them, but those traditional boats, they were the same throughout the whole region. Everybody was using them. They just don't use it inland as much anymore because not for some reason, but river traffic, moving by water and river has given way to like moving by car. But I would like to see a revival of that. In the modern day, there's a lot of there's people in different cities that make some really high quality boats, like modern boats, um, and things like any. So however the canoe they find that you say. Are there more phenomena like the Amakama wooden caves in Igbo land? The thing you just referred to, Amakama, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of that. So, Amakama wooden caves. I almost want to write it down and look it up because this is the type of stuff I get really interested in. Give me a minute. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write this down because it sounds interesting. But no, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. If you're interested in like artifacts and archaeology, which I am, take a look at Uturu, Uturu. You probably already know about this. Ugwe, Gwuele. Trying to think of some other, and then just there's a lot of like different things in that region where you get these like either cave or that kind of thing. Um, Funny enough, I was looking up Tobe Mwigwe. That's how I learned about the Uturu caves. And it's like, oh, that he's from Uturu. I was like, oh, interesting. I clicked on Uturu, and then it started explaining that they have this huge artifacts finding there. Easy people of Abakaliki have a 5-day week. Yes, they do. Did you know this? Yeah, I came to learn this recently. Thank you for that, Divine King. Way to ignore what I wrote. You better type it again. Baltic Sea, yeah, sea between Germany and the Baltic states, Scandinavia. Yep, thank you for that. Biko, I forgot the name. Biko, what was the name of the fertility pyramid you spoke of? AKW ALI space OMUMU. Akwali or Momo, sometimes known as ODA space or Momo. I have a video called Omumu Explained, which kind of breaks down what that's all about, what energy is being channeled and all that. So, thank you for all you do. I really appreciate you, Raphael. Appreciate that. I've noticed that the feces found all over, okay, monumental architecture in Washington, D.C. looks like feces? Oh, fast. Oh. The fastest. I don't even know how to say the word. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's the same, and it's used. It's a symbol of authority. Yeah, it's used the same way. It's used the same way. It said that the Romans learned it from the Etruscans. The Romans, Etruscans, right? But yeah, it's a symbol of mandates, authority, collective authority, that kind of thing. But it's the same, exact same thing. Yeah, the fastest, that kind of thing. Thank you for that. Aqua or Momo, aqua, and then a after the a, your last a, put li, aquali, aquali. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool. Appreciate that. What are your thoughts on Mansa Abubakar? When I was a teenager, that story blew my mind. So I probably know more than I should about that story because I really looked into it for like, well, it was probably months, but it felt like years. But it's an unbelievably interesting story. I think he made it. I think he made it to North America. I don't think all the ships made it. I think they made it in pieces, like in fragments. But yeah, I think they made it, and I don't. I think there has been regular travel between West, not regular, but like periodic travel between West Africa and the New World, right? Typically, West Africa going to the New World. The first people that went to the New World, they said this. They said it. Not the first people, but the first, people that went to the New World. They said it themselves, right? Hey, there's a bunch of Africans here, and that kind of thing, right? And then there's some things you see that's like, because like cassava is from the New World. They said that the colonialists brought it in. No, they didn't. They didn't. They didn't bring cassava in. It's not them, right? It's somebody. It's not them. They didn't do that, you know. Oh, let's go to Africa and farm cassava, which I, a white man, don't. I don't even eat this shit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They didn't bring that shit in. And one of the things that is interesting is that when Christopher Columbus was making his voyage to America, he got two brothers from what is now Ghana, the Ghana region. He got two brothers from Ghana to navigate. Two brothers, they were, about, right? They saw black men in the Americas trading with gold tip spears. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what but yeah, when Columbus went over, he went and got two Africans. And in the process of him sailing there, one of them wanted like start his own whatchamacallit expeditions. They had a fallout. That's what I know. He went and got two Ghanaian brothers to do it with him. help him navigate it. But I think it's actually been happening more often than not. If you look at the way that I can't think of the word for it, but like basically the flow of the ocean goes. It starts from West Africa. It starts from what is actually Igbo land, and it rides up the coast. Right, if you put a boat, if you just sit a boat there, it'll actually naturally carry your boat right to the Caribbean. Right, that's why all the hurricanes follow that pattern. That's why all the hurricanes follow that pattern. It's like Umar. That's why all the hurricanes follow that pattern. They always start from West Africa. They're not there's winds. They're not hurricanes. There's winds, and then they build, 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 build. By the time they get to the New World, they're really powerful. Sometimes they're very destructive, and we call it a hurricane. But that current, the current actually naturally takes you there from the coast of West Africa. So yeah, I don't think it's new. I don't think that's brand new. Um, that connection is brand new, and I think that's the story of Abu Bakr is very, very, very. I used to be like I said, I can share too much about this, but yeah, it's something I'm very fascinated by. And I think they made it. The black man's world for Guinea was, or sorry, gold was guanin. Oh, I didn't know that. Guanin. Ah, which is the Mandinka word for gold. There you go. There you go. Connection is poor. No, no, my connection is poor. Yes. In fact, I want to put on my data. If I get disconnected, we're done, right? I'm going to put on data instead because the Wi Fi. Can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me? I think I'm out. I don't, are we good? Okay, so somebody says yes. All right, so we're still in the game. Okay, so the connection should be better now. The last time I tried that, it disconnected me, so I'm glad we survived it. So I'll do my. What do you think about the very credible theory of Atlantis being in West Africa? I also believe that. Yeah. Yeah, like in Mauritania, like the Mauritania area. Yeah, I also believe that with that structure, the circular structure. I also believe that if you look at like how Benin, like the city of Benin was built, it's the same pattern. It's this circle, circle, circle. It's the exact same pattern as what was up there. And I don't believe it was the only African city or West African city that was built that way, right? But you know, the people in Kemet said, "Hey, that's where Atlantis is." Why would I doubt them? They're the ones who told us about Atlantis to begin with, right? But yeah, it was in Africa, absolutely. Atlantis is allegorical, nothing more. I don't think it was allegorical. I think it was a real place. I think that, of course, something that old, as time spreads, you know, a lot of what gets attributed to it might start becoming kind of, you know, loopy or mythical. But I think it's referencing a real place. It's not unbelievable. It's not unbelievable that it'd be referring to a real place. So, do you know anything about the cultural connection between Igbo and Kikuyu people? I have Kikuyu friends, and many of our words are the same, just spelled different or pronounced but pronounced similar. Yeah, so it's interesting because I used to work at a psychiatric hospital, and while I was working there, I had this coworker and good friend from Sudan, from South Sudan. And he was explaining to me that Igbo people are related to his people, which are Lua people, and that there's a connection between them, and that a lot of the words that Igbo people like, a lot of the names like Okoye and things like that. A lot of our names parallel and things like that. So I wouldn't, and I think Kikuyu. I don't know too much about the Kikuyu people, but I know that of course similar region, same place. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all. That's why earlier when somebody asked me about like origins of Igbo people, for one, I don't really get too much into that because it's so far away that that's not even not. We're just talking about some other shit now, that kind of thing. We've been where we're at for we're a freakishly long amount of time. But if I were to say somewhere there's a lot of evidence to like the Great Lakes region. There's a lot of evidence towards like kind of northern Congo-ish area. And then there's, you know, some people even say like from the Sahara, but that I don't believe that one. That kind of thing. Just because people from Sahara have a certain look, and we don't really have that look. But yeah, Same West African linguistic is evident in Japan. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have noticed that a lot of Igbo words and Japanese words look alike. It'd be interesting to figure out what that's all about, though, you know? When do we next move into the next of the four world ages? I don't know. I've been asked that question before. I don't know. I don't know what the next one's going to look like. I don't know if it starts over. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's already happened. I don't know. Oh, never mind. Guys, I think you guys are getting tired. It's always like the same time that everybody slows down. So that's really interesting. But all right, y'all. It looks like we are. Wait, no, we got more. Oh, yeah. Raphael had asked me about insipidity hand signs. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I don't know any. You'd have to join the Ekbe Society, and I think they teach you there, or you can learn there. But yeah, so insipidity is a language culture. There's a writing component, and there's a hand signal component. There's a sign language component, right? And a lot of the Ekbe masquerades, you'll see them, they'll do these different things, and they're communicating with each other and so on and so forth. It is said that insipidity was taught by a group of ape-like creatures, right? A group of ape-like creatures, and these ape-like creatures taught the sign language and they taught the writing and that kind of thing. So they come together. But I don't know any symbols. I just know that it's the Ekbe Society that still does them, specifically the masquerade dancers within the Ekbe, as of today, to my knowledge. And you know, joining Ekbe is a matter of, I think, just join. There are certain communities that do. Every community has its masquerade society, and where I'm from, we do Owu, so we don't do Ekbe. But Arochukwu, Ohafia, Abiriba, Item, maybe Ngwa. I think Ngwa does Okonko or something like that. But they all the kind of the Abia State, Ebonyi State area, cross rivers, close to the cross rivers, they do Ekbe. And into cross rivers like EBBO, all those different ethnic groups, they all do Ekbe. And of course, they have the hand signs there. But I don't know any. I'm not a member of the society. But yeah, it isn't interesting. I'll eventually do a video on it though when I learn more. Well, eventually. So that was a really good question, Raphael. But guys, it looks like you guys have slowed down or my connection's gone. Father Nwakedu, ụmụnne ndewo, Renna ndewo nwanne, kedu ka ị dị? Keka, I almost said where you're from. Keka obodo gị dị. Please try to connect your University of West. Please try to connect your University of West Indies. Oh, should I connect to the University of the West Indies? Okay, I'd be interested in doing that. Oh, the same as Japan. Okay, all right, yeah. I mean, if they reach out, I don't know. Oh, them, all right, y'all. Looks like the questions have slowed down. Adema, get makage. Anom na okay. Ugbu a achọrọ m isi na ebe achọrọ m ịgwa ndị mmadụ ebe ibi. You understand? But ka m jụọ gị ka ịdala esi dị n'anya gị. Otu a anọ m na mụ na onwe m achọrọ m isi ebe m nọ, but anọ m ebe ọzọ, anọ m na Texas. But I got locha na maybe anọ abụọ. Can you talk? Ibi na Houston. Mba, otu a ebiri m na Houston, mana ebe m nọ anọ m ga maka ọrụ nwunye m. Nwunye m bidoro ọrụ ọfụrụ na November. Maka ya anyị gara ebe ọzọ, mana anyị ga-elo Houston n'oge Chineke. Ọ dị mma. Really, your Igbo's gotten really good. I'm still working on it too. What's your opinion on homogeneous African cultures? I don't know what you mean by that. I don't know. They're homogeneous. No, I'm not trying to be rude. I mean, what do you in what context? I think a lot of probably most African cultures are pretty homogeneous. If you're talking about like ethnicity, you know, but there's not much I can say on that. You know, most people get DNA tests. The shit says Igbo 98%, 97%, 96, that kind of thing. But you get some exceptions here and there. You skip some questions, but the fiber optics are affected globally, they say. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, I can't catch every question, you know. Kedu maka Nnamdi na nwa nwaanyị gị na nwunye gị? Nnamdi dị mma, ha ọ nọ na spring break otu a. Um, but ọ nọ nga just na-ele onyonyo just 24/7 na-ele onyonyo. So agwara m ya na ọ ga-aga n'ezi jee chọọ ndị otu ya ka ha gụọ egwuregwu. Nwa m nwaanyị ọ dị mma kwuo ihe ọbụla gbasara egwu na uri ọ ebe ọ na-eti aka ya. So ọ nọ nga na-eme mgbe ọbụla. Na nwunye m dị mma otu m gwara gị that o bidoro ọrụ ọfụrụ so kwuo na-enye ya the ordinary ntakasị ahụ, the stress of ọrụ obodo oyibo. Asụsụ Igbo siri ike ọ dịghị mfe. Always joke. Always joke. All right, guys. I think you guys have ran out of questions. So we are going to hop. Thank you guys for being here. For those of you who are interested in supporting the channel, again, the best way to do it is actually the easiest way to do it is just sharing the content. If you see it, share it to somebody who you think would be interested in what I discuss. Another good way is to join the Patreon at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. I'm actually making a new tier probably tonight if I can stay awake, and I'm really going to try to stay awake. But if I can stay awake, I'm going to make a new tier on Patreon, and that tier is going to allow you to do Kedu for free, or I mean, without any additional hassle or cost. So what is Kedu? Kedu is my Igbo language school. And we have just opened a new class in Kedu for traditional medicine that is taught by a dibia at home. There is a 2-level class. The second level is an apprenticeship with the same dibia, like a virtual apprenticeship. The first level is learning how to do the work and that kind of thing. So if you feel that your calling is to be a healer, if you feel that it's the thing for you, go to www.kedu.me. And sign up there, kedu.me, and sign up there. That being said, and then I'm trying my hardest, but I'm gonna try my hardest to release a video in the morning. There's a part that I gotta do, and it's gonna cause me to stay up all night, but it's gonna be very worth it. The next video I'm releasing is on Ara, which is mental illness. So I'm discussing the ancestral views on mental illness. And then I'm discussing different cures, right, that are used for different psychological effects. I actually name the exact roots and leaves and things like that are used, and as well as how therapy is done, and then how it's understood spiritually, as well as in the physical, mundane. That being said, you guys, how much will the new tier be? Oh, it's going to be up there. It's gonna be up there. No, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be $90 because the payment plan for Kedu is $90. So the new tier will be $90. Then any class you can just walk in for Kedu. If you want to go do the language class, you walk in. If you want to do whatever, there's no additional hassle. But as I said, it's gonna be $90. Going to call it Ezume Zoom. So the full total package. You get every single thing. That being said, Uno Gadi, Uno Geto. Nke ọbụla ahụ na o tere aka ọ ga-adị n'ụwa ọ ga-adị otu a na eke n'orie Nafo, Nangwo. Ise. All right, y'all. Jashika.